When I come to a place like here, I sometimes realize that the reason why there's hashgacha to go to different places is because you get a lot of chizuk. You go around and you see places like over here where people are inspired and they build, and Torah is emes and it draws people and people become connected and grow. It's mechazik me, and I'm sure it's mechazik everyone who steps foot in here. So Bez Hashem, you should be mitchazek and be mechazek, continue being stronger and be mechazek people. It's tremendous when you accomplish something like this. I'd like to think a few moments about this upcoming parsha, Parshas Chukas. So Parshas Chukas discusses the most hidden mitzvah, paraduma. So a mitzvah like paraduma will never understand exactly what it is, but we can learn a lot from it. In other words, sometimes there are a lot of things in nature we don't understand what it is, but we have a sort of a sense of a system of how things work, and that's something that can be extremely educational for us, and we can learn something from it. So I'd like to take 2 or 3 halachas that seem to be very mysterious. They are mysterious, but something that we can learn from it, we can extrapolate. So it says, Adam ki yamas ba'ohel, zos haTorah, Adam ki yamas ba'ohel. It's telling us the halacha of the strongest type of tumah is the tumah of a person who is nifter, and anyone who is in the tent with the person who's nifter is tummy mace. So the Gemara dashes from it, Torah goes oil. Torah is only miskayim by somebody who's meimis atzmoi ba'holo shel Torah. Torah is miskayim only by someone who kills himself in the holo shel Torah. So it's very hard to understand why an important point like this would be learned from kind of the most Talmudic thing. I mean, you want to tell me about how important Talmud Torah is, how much a person has to work and give himself and kill himself. But would the Torah place this thing in something which seems to be the furthest thing you would expect? And I would also like to get a feel for the language. So let's say the person is a big masmid and he sits in his backyard and learns all the time. In LA, it's possible to do it. It's as far as the weather goes. Now, I don't know about LA, but the weather allows for it. But by us, it would be difficult between the mosquitoes and the snow. You would have a problem. But here, you could do it. So a holo shel Torah is a phrase. Matova lecha, Yaakov ishtam yeshva holim. You have that sense of ohel, which means that. So it's an interesting type of, it's a facet of Talmud Torah that we're not familiar with. 2 more halachas that I'd like to point out. The paradumas, the bringing the paraduma was unique because it was the only type of, it's not a carbon really, but was brought outside the Beis HaMikdash. We know that all karbanis are strictly in the Beis HaMikdash, and chas v'sholom, you're not allowed to bring it outside. It's an isser, it's karas, shchuti chutz, and you have to, and you must bring it inside. Paraduma was brought outside, but not quite. Rashi says, El nochach ne'olmo, the pasuk says, he stands outside on Har HaZeisim. This is one of the ironies. Har HaZeisim couldn't be a graveyard because you had to do paraduma there. It's how it became is very difficult to understand, but he stood on Har HaZeisim and he did zrika towards the Beis HaMikdash. So Rashi said, he sees, and today you can sort of look, and you see the Beis HaMikdash, and he has to look at the Pesach Heichel and be mechav with the zrika. The Mishnayos in Midas, when they explain the height of the different walls, explain that it was lower because we wanted the kohen to see into the Beis HaMikdash, the Pesach Heichel, as he was doing the azor. So the walls were staggered in a way that you could look in. That's the mission. So this is a very interesting halacha. I can understand that you'd bring it in the Beis Hamikdash because that's the Makom Kodesh. But it's not. It's not a carbon. It's something that's brought for whatever kochos, however one understand it, has to do with tumah. It doesn't belong there. But there's a compromise. He's standing there and looking into when he's doing the zrika. One more interesting halacha like that. It says that v'shachat oisel lefanov zar shochet v'lo roeh. So normally the halacha is that all avodas in Beis Hamikdash need to be done by a kohen. The exception is shchita. Shchita is something that can be done by anybody. There's no halacha that a kohen should stand over him. There's no you don't need the mashliach kashrus maybe, but you don't need it. Here the pasuk says the zar shechs, and Elazar looks on as he's doing it. Unusual halacha. So like I said before, we can't really learn anything that is, we won't know it exactly, but we can build a certain sense of something, a certain truth from a sense of something. And I'd like to try to think about these points and come up with an understanding. In the physical world, I guess one of the most basic tenets of the physical reality is for A to connect to B, it must have some contact. So if I throw a ball at something, it could break it. It could bounce off it. That's very understood. The sun sends rays down, they're photons, they're whatever they are, and it comes down to the earth, it warms up, it gives light, and so on. Those are things that have contact with each other, and any contact allows for an effect, for a change. Things that don't contact each other, and this is one of the reasons why in the physical world we still don't understand how gravity works. How does A affect B if there's no contact? I'm not a physicist, I don't know the answer, they don't know either. I mean, there's theories, but that's not what we've come to talk about. But the point is, it's fundamental, it's axiomatic to us, that things that don't touch or connect have no effect on each other. To have an effect, you need some contact, either direct touch, throwing something, but without contact, there's no effect. That's a physical reality. This reflects itself in halacha. When a person becomes tamei, in order to become tamei, there must be contact. Most tumah is tumas maga. You touch something, and it affects you. You carry it, you sit on it, and so on. All of these items are physical realities. So obviously tumah is not a physical reality, but it reflects it, that without contact and connection, there is no transfer of anything. Unique is tumas ohel. In other words, there's a concept called hashpa'ah. Hashpa'ah means an effect, but no clear contact. So if I tell somebody, go do this, and the person is obligated to me or it's nice to me, so that's where I created that. But then I can also affect a person some way. And that's very difficult to put a finger on because there is no direct, I didn't tell him to do it, I didn't talk about it, but some effect of some sort. So the concept of hashpa'ah as opposed to maga is a concept of that. It's the same relationship. Animals, physical items in the world, can only work, they're physical. They only work through contact. A dead animal, whatever the tumah is, requires maga in order to create the tumah, because that's how physical realities work. Tumah Adam, because Adam is something more than a physical reality, there's another dimension to a person. A person has another part himself. A person can be mashpia. It's very interesting. derivation sometimes of words. In Ivrit, a flu is called shapat, comes from the word mashpia. It comes from the English, influenza. The reason why they called it influenza, flu, was because they couldn't figure out how it works. This is before they knew about germs. And the theory was somehow you influence, they saw that people became sick from being around other people. So it was called influenza. It's like there's an influence. That's because they couldn't see, they didn't know what the germs were and so on. And that's in modern Hebrew today. Shapat is a similar translation of influenza. The same idea. But the point is, Adam works not only by direct contact, but hashpa'ah. That's Adam versus all other balachayim and so on. In the world of Ruchnius, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are physical embodiments of a Ruchnistic idea. And they work physically. If I don't eat the matzah, I can hang the matzah on my walls, I can have a whole house full of matzah. I'm not going to feel cheres. The way in which matzah, the tam matzah, gets transferred is by eating it, and then I feel the matzah, I feel the cheres, it connects to me. Same with the maror. Same thing with tefillin. I put the tefillin on my arm, that's where it affects me. So mitzvahs affect a person primarily through contact, action, contact, etc. Now there's Torah. Torah relates to the part of the person that is the extra dimension, the das of the person, the seichel. That affects a person a lot more deeply. Every mitzvah is connected a certain aver in a person, a certain limb in the person, and it connects to that because it's specific, it's physical specific. So of course all mitzvahs have good effects on a person, but the main effect of tefillin is on the arm, whatever the arm represents in a person, and so on. Torah, because it reflects a higher dimension, it diffuses to the entire person. It's something that has a hashpah, a kloistic hashpah. It's something that affects its entirety. A holo shel Torah, Adam ki yomas ba'ohel, a holo shel Torah represents the quality of Torah that's not just a specific act of learning, but it has a bigger effect. It encompasses the entirety of the person. So we do learn it from here, because the klal is always, from the negative and the positive are mirror images. If Adam at his tumah, at his worst, is a being that can affect a surrounding. I didn't touch the dead person, I just walked into the same room, it could be a huge room, and I walked in. So there's something about the person that when negative, it creates a tumah in its sviva. Lahavdul min hatamei latohar. When a person is learning Torah, then a person affects the surroundings and he becomes part of it. A holo shel Torah represents something that is a dimension of Torah that speaks to just more, it's more than just the act of sitting and studying. It's the general sense of that Torah, the atmosphere that Torah creates, that the person becomes part of. And that's why you have these two unique halachas over here, where you don't need the Kohen to touch the shechita. You need the Kohen there, but just by looking at it and having that connection to it, it's attributed to him. It's mitzvah biskan. So this is also mitzvah biskan of shechita, is him standing and watching it. And when you make that zrika, the chiddush of paraduma is you can stand outside, and as long as you're looking there, then it's as if you're mechovet to his. In other words, because paraduma deals with the core of what a person is, it's the unique negative feature of what a person is, we can derive and look at the mirror image of what is the unique positive characteristics. Adam has in himself, when he taps into the full Adam, the ability to stand and look and be connected. It's one of the things that makes a makom, Torah, so incredibly important and effective. We talk about when we're makar somebody, you get it to put on tefillin. It's a wonderful mitzvah. You mezaka yid with tefillin, it's amazing. And we don't know what schar is, and that's wonderful. But when we give a person a makom of Torah, then its effect is far greater. It affects a person, not only in the particular sugya we're learning, but it affects a person in everything. Why is it that a person who begins to become connected to Torah begins to do a lot of things, even what I didn't tell a person specifically? He just begins to change because he's affected, he's mushba. It's vague, it's diffuse, but then then we see its results in so many different places. It means not just a place that has the convenience where they happen to have sfarim and a table and a chair you can sit and learn. It's not a library. It's a makom Torah. It's a place that's something about the makom. It creates out of yirah. It means it affects the person not only when he's in the Beis Medrash, it means it affects him when he's outside, but he keeps connecting visually to it. The Gemara says, the Gemara Babasa speaks about a halachic issue about how far does a young bird go. In other words, when you find a bird and you're trying to identify who the owner is, so how far do you have to look? And the Gemara says a klal that it keeps looking back and seeing, as long as it sees its nest, it will go. Once it loses sight of its nest, it goes back again. Just like sometimes you see a little kid, he runs away from parents, but he always keeps seeing if the parents are there. The idea that vision connects you to a makom, the idea that a person, even when he's outside the makom, but as long as his mind and his heart is there. Rav Hutner once told somebody, the person was debating between, he was in Yeshiva, going to university, and so on. He told him, better you should sit in university and wish you were in Yeshiva than sit in Yeshiva and wish you were in university. Because a person is where his heart and the neshama is. So I don't know if it takes that case, but his point was, a person needs to be connected with his vision and his heart to it. So Baruch Hashem, a makom was created, a makom that has the ability to give that feel, understanding that that's what it means to us. It means that there's now a place where just being part of it, connecting to it, has an extraordinary effect on me. It means that if I'm outside and I still have in mind, if it's still the center of my life, then even when I'm outside, I'm connected. There's the Tziddur quote a brisa. It says that in the Beis Hamikdash they would build around the courtyard. They had these various lishkos, shachos, like storage rooms and places with different things took place, different service areas for the Beis Hamikdash. Whether it was the menachas, whether it was the shemen, whether it was this, that. So it's not clear, are they considered kadosh with the kedusha Beis Hamikdash or not? So it gives a klal. If it's built on the ground that's not kadosh with the Beis Hamikdash, but it opens up into Beis Hamikdash, it's kadosh. The shachas abnuyas b'choil u'pischeim b'kodesh, they are in chol, but the door opens into kodesh are kodesh. Those are shachos that are in kodesh, but the door opens up outside are chol. In other words, the same idea. It depends not where it is, but where it's open to. Where does its line of vision take it to? So, Bez Hashem, the place should be mischuzik. It's a tremendous bracha. We've seen, Baruch Hashem by us, I was just speaking now of, you see that a makom Torah is mashpia. You can't put even a finger how or why, but it has an incredible effect. Bez Hashem, the place should become mischazik and generate much more of the makom. And every person as a yachid should remain his line of sight and vision should remain focused over here. That should become his makom, and no matter how far he goes, he's never out of line of sight. His heart and mind is always Be'ez Hashem kosher and davuk to this makom. Atzlacha.